Hey everyone, welcome to the Team Buzz podcast by We're All Teammates, where everyone is welcome and there's bound to be good conversation. We are your hosts. I'm TC.
And I'm Connor, and we're so happy to kick off our new podcast series as another way to share your stories. We hope that this will give all athletes a chance to share their stories aloud, and in doing so, allow people who may be struggling the chance to hear them.
Our guest today is Cortney VanLiew from Florida Gulf Coast University, and she is a volleyball player, and we'll be discussing all about her story.
Yeah, so stick around, and we're going to have a great conversation with somebody who has a lot of good things to say.
Welcome, Courtney. We're glad to have you, an FGCU legend in the flesh.
I don't know about that, but I'm glad to be here.
So we're going to start off with this segment we call it rapid fire. It's where we ask you like 5 questions to get to know you better. So the first one is, who is or was your sports idol, if you have one?
Yeah, so growing up in Indiana, my biggest sports idol was Peyton Manning. I just thought he was a really classy guy, great athlete, big Colts fan, that kind of thing.
Omaha, yeah.
More of a Denver legend, if you ask me.
Who is your favorite young athlete right now, if you had to pick one?
Like
You
they're
can say
young.
yourself. Yeah, they're young.
That's kind of a tough question. I don't think I have a favorite young athlete right now. I'm not even sure I have a favorite athlete. If I did, it would probably be Simone Biles. She's incredible, both in talent and in life. So
What's your take on her situation at the Olympics?
incredible. She is gutsy for a lot of things, especially most of the moves that she throws that have never been attempted. But honestly, in my opinion, one of the gutsiest things that she has done was be okay with having to sacrifice some of her physical skills for the sake of her mental health.
And I mean her physical safety too, because she was risking a lot by doing that stuff.
Yeah, which a lot of people I don't think realize how dangerous it can be.
You were a gymnast yourself when you were younger, right?
Kind of, yeah. I was an actual gymnast for only a couple months, but I taught myself a lot of tumbling moves because I was a crazy kid, and why not?
Could you do a
Can
flip
you
right
still
now?
do them?
Yeah, I'm not doing one.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So if you could go back to the beginning of your athletics career, let's say, and switch sports, what would you do?
Um, if I could go to any sport, I would probably go to swimming just because that was probably my favorite sport growing up until I got to high school, and then it kind of switched into volleyball, and that's what I stuck with. But I always really liked both the individual and team aspect of swimming because you get to compete for yourself to win races, but you also get to have a little bit of that team aspect in it. And I like the individual portion where it's on you completely. There's no one else you can blame if you have a bad race. I think that's very interesting.
I like that.
Definitely a very difficult sport. It'd be awesome to be a good swimmer.
Yeah,
So
something like
we have a question, and it's kind of different, but I think every sport has this. So if you what is your favorite quote unquote game in your sport? So we have, there are different things that you do in practice, different games that you play. So not your favorite like competitive game, but favorite, kind of practice game.
um We play this game at practice. Well, there's two. There's one that's volleyball related and then one that's not. The non-volleyball related is one we barely get to do, and it's called a roll off. We stand at the end line and we see who can roll the volleyball and get it closest to the opposite end line. And then we have like a tournament until you crown a winner. It's always very fun. We get very competitive, voting on who we think's gonna win. So that's probably my favorite non-volleyball game. But volleyball game, we play this game called Swedish two ball, and it's two balls are going at the same time, and you're trying to get both of them to drop on the same side in order to get a point. It's kind of confusing to explain, but it's a lot of fun because a lot of things are happening at once, and you really have to be paying attention.
Are these both games that other volleyball players would resonate with, would know if you went and asked them?
Swedish two ball is more of a known game, but the roll off is pretty specific to FGCU
Roll off is an
volleyball.
FGCU classic.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And if you have some, what is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten from a coach, and also the worst?
Ooh, this is a tough question. I don't know why you put rapid fire on here. I'm taking a long time to answer these. But my best piece of advice I've ever gotten from a coach is actually from my coach now. He told me to stop being so analytical of the game and just take time and appreciate the talents and the gifts that I was given, and to just let those take control. To kind of like relax and just let myself play and enjoy the sport that I was given. So that's probably the best piece of advice I've ever gotten. The worst piece of advice I've ever gotten is probably anyone telling me to relax. I don't do that very well, especially in the game. So anyone saying that, or anyone trying to tell me to calm down or relax, it kind of does the opposite. So that's my worst piece of advice.
So just going based off that, do you have maybe a word or a phrase that does work for you if relax doesn't?
Um, I think probably the best one is just to breathe, to take a second and reset my frame of mind in general, instead of being so focused on like what I need to do to improve, to just um, reset and focus on what I've always done best, and to trust the skills that I've trained for many, many years. So that's probably my answer.
That's great.
That kind of like your self-talk. I know a lot of athletes have a few things they tell themselves throughout the game. Is that
Yeah,
one that you focus on?
that's probably my biggest one, the one that comes up the most. There are other things that are specific to certain skills that I do on the court, different cues, but just an overall and general one is just to remind myself to breathe.
Is that something that you yourself remind you of, or do you have to have other people do it for you to kind of check back in, or what?
No, it's mostly myself,
Hmm.
um, because I can monitor my mental game more, or can be the only one to do that, whereas other people just see like the physical part. So I have to stay on top of my game in my head just to make sure that that doesn't leak into the physical.
Very nice.
I think
Very
that's
good.
big time. I think self-talk is something a lot of athletes either don't know about or don't utilize, like in those high-pressure situations, and they can definitely help you a lot.
Or even worse, it's the detrimental self-talk.
Yeah.
It's you can just be super negative with yourself, and that's never helpful.
No.
Well, listen, the next thanks for letting us get to know you a little bit better. The next segment we have is called Who, Why, What. So the first question is, why do you play your sport?
So I started playing volleyball back when I was in third or fourth grade, so I was really young playing competitively. So that kind of is when I started. I got into it because my mother played college volleyball, my dad played volleyball. So it was kind of in the family. That's where it started. But I continue to play because of how much I truly love and enjoy the sport. It has become a bit of a release for me throughout the years. Whenever I'm struggling in life or in school, I always know that volleyball will be there, and I can take my mind off everything else. So it's my mental break, which is kind of funny because it can also be the cause of a lot of stresses and anxieties, but at the end of the day, it's the my favorite thing to do.
So if so, then what is your mental break from volleyball if you need one?
I like to read a lot. I have different kinds of books, whether it's just like fiction or it's, sports psychology books. I just like to learn more about what other people think about mentally or what they go through. If I'm not reading, if I want to kind of relax, I guess is the word I'd use. I've really gotten into embroidery, so I can make some pretty cool things with embroidery.
Very nice.
You got an Etsy shop coming soon?
I don't know if I want to put the time commitment into an Etsy shop, but maybe a couple years down the road.
So the next question we have is why does mental health matter to you? It's kind of like a broad question, but what makes it important to you?
So sports specifically, I think the mental aspect of the game is the biggest portion and also the most underrated portion of the game, especially in volleyball because it can honestly be very analytical and very technique driven. And I think that if you spend time on the mental aspect and do visualization and just how you talk to yourself, it can improve your game more than hours and hours of practice is or practice can. And so I just think it's very important to be able to put an emphasis on the mental health or just the mental aspect of the game because it can help you that much more. But in general, I think mental health is very important because it's all you have in reality. Um, because you you're the one who spends the most amount of time with yourself and you spend most of your day kind of talking to yourself or in your head. And if you have like a bad mental health or you're just struggling, then you're kind of around that struggle all day. And so you can fix it or not fix it. You can improve kind of your life by improving the way that your mental health is.
You mentioned visualization in there. Is that something you do a lot? I think that's like an underutilized tool in athletics. And if you do use it, how did you get into it?
Yeah, I use visualization of a ton. I think it's so important to be able to practice your technique in your head, just to be able to think through everything and visualize perfect scenarios. I started doing it probably even before I got to high school. I would just go on my way to club tournaments, and while I was sitting in the car listening to music, I would just picture myself playing the game and how I was going to do it. Um, and that just kind of carried over into now, and I still do it. I try to get as much practice in as I can, both mentally and physically, just to try and make myself that much better.
That's awesome. I definitely agree with you with the impact visualization can help because it's like you're doing actual practice with no load on your body. Um, and so it's like a common t- tool a lot of like the top athletes use that a lot of people don't know about, and it can take a lot of stress off of you in the game or in practice because you're kind of doing something that you've seen in your head over and over and over. So that's pretty cool that you do that.
Thanks.
TC, is that something that you use a lot?
Yeah, I do a lot of visualization pretty much every single day. I just lay down and I do a lot of like breathing work and just visualizing things I want to do in practice the next day or in the game the next day. And um, it's really helped me a lot. I started doing it probably about 2 or 3 years ago now, because I saw a lot of UFC fighters talking about it, and ever since I started doing it, I noticed like a big shift in my game. I felt a lot more comfortable on the field just with all the different scenarios that have gone through in my head because, like I said, it was the second time I'd seen them, um, and I think it's a very useful tool.
So what is your, and Courtney, you can answer this too, but what is your process of the whole visualization? Like how do you get into it? How do you come out of it? What are you thinking about while you're doing it?
For me, I just start off with like meditating and breathing. So I have like a few breathing exercises I do, and then once I feel like completely relaxed, it pretty much just starts off with a kickoff of a soccer game in my head, and then I don't even like try to think about what scenarios are going to happen. I just think about a soccer game and things that can happen, different things that I would do, and I try not to put too much thought into it. I try not to like force myself to think about certain actions. Just whatever pops in my head kind of pops in my head. Um, and then to bring myself out of it, I just kind of start doing more deeper breathing, and then I'm back awake in real life.
That's great. Courtney, do you have a process that you go through?
Yeah, so it's changed a little bit within the past few months, but in the past, like when I first started doing it, I would go through each specific skill that I would encounter throughout the game, and go through it like I was doing reps in practice, sets of 10, sets of 20, just to visualize what good reps looked like, and then as I played through different play sets or different scenarios in the game, I would kind of go through myself in the different positions that I play because I'm not in the same position throughout the entire game. Now, I actually, for volleyball specifically, there's a new app out that it focuses completely on mental health and the mental visualization of the game, and it has a lot of guided visualizations specifically from each position. So I can go through and I can pick as an outside hitter, I can pick plays from the outside, different serving, different servicey from all three positions in the court, and that kind of thing. So it's more of a guided, like I have something to help me work through it just so I'm not mindlessly doing it. I have a little bit more of a purpose.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think at least for me personally, TC, like the way that you would do it, and I don't know if you have to do this too, but I would like have to bring myself back into it. You know what I mean? Like I think I would, while I'm doing it, I think I would maybe doze off, but then try to, I would have to pull myself back into focusing on that. But I think that's cool that you guys have your own separate ways of doing it. I think I agree. It's definitely certainly undervalued, underappreciated, and probably underused to kind of get yourself prepared and ready for either training or a game. But with that being said, Courtney, what is your mental health goal? What kind of goals do you set for yourself as far as getting your mental state healthy?
Is this like sport specific or is this just in life?
Yeah, either one. Let's start with sports.
Okay. Because I believe the mental aspect of the game to be so important, I think that my biggest mental health goal in sport is to be consistent with it, to not have so many ups and downs throughout a game, throughout a practice, throughout a season, to stay at a more positive mental health state than a negative one, regardless of how I'm playing or how the team is doing or wins or losses. just to be able to be a more consistent high instead of having the ups and downs, because the mental portion is so big that if it's up and down, then so will your physical performance. And so I think consistency is the biggest portion for sports.
With that being said, like consistency, everywhere, all athletes, we all go through up and down periods, like you said. What is something you do, or like how do you manage the down periods where if you're not playing so well, how do you help manage that in your head to kind of not get too down on yourself where it just like keep spiraling?
It's a great question, TC. um, it's hard. Like, mental health is hard, especially when something that takes up so much of your life is not going as well as you hope. It can be hard to stay consistently positive or consistently upbeat. So, I just try and remind myself of the good things that have come too, and that this bad performance or this slump that I'm in, that it's not gonna be a forever thing, and that I can do whatever I can to work myself through it. So if that's extra reps in practice, if that's extra visualization, if that's just cutting some things out of my life that aren't beneficial to where I'm at, both on and off the court, whatever it takes, to be the best and healthiest that I can be, is how I would go about it.
I think that's great. I think it's really important to talk about ways to manage the the kind of downfalls of your sport. I know like a lot of the stories in the news and on TV and everything are about everyone's success and how you just work really hard and you're successful, but a lot of the times you work really hard and you can still have a bad game, and stuff like that can be really hard for a lot of people to get over. Um, so I think like exploring that space for everyone is a big could be a big help with like mental health for athletes in the near future.
One of the things that I've been like trying to focus on more recently is remembering who I am as a player and as a person, and to remind myself that I have accomplished some pretty cool things, and that has been a result of years of dedication and hard work. And one bad game does not, or one stretch of bad games does not take away from all that I've accomplished, and to remind myself to remember who I am as a player and a person.
Well, that
Connor, do you have any things like you've done to pull yourself like out of slumps or something like that?
I think it's similar to what we're kind of about to get into, but and Courtney, like you said, kind of reminding yourself about the person you are. I think it just makes it that much more important to take care of your mental health outside the game, and that that helps when you're in it. So I think when you get in those lows, it's just important to remember why you're doing what you're doing, and that, and TC, your story is on this too, that your sport doesn't define you as a player. Your actions outside of it, outside of your sport, define you way more as a person than your sport actually does. So I think just getting in that headspace that you're doing this all for a reason, and if you love what you do, then it'll go back up. If you keep working hard at it, I'm a big believer in working hard, and good things will happen to you. And I know that it doesn't always work out like that, but it's just something that I kind of stick to. So yeah, just taking care of yourself outside of the game will make those ups and downs a little bit easier.
I like that. I have one kind of funny thing that I do that I think you guys might think is funny. If I have like a really bad game or something and like I just can't get it out of my head like how bad I played or like a bad practice, I'll go on YouTube and I'll type in like center backs, like terrible center back mistakes, and I'll just watch professionals mess up over and over and over because I'm like, and then it just kind of like makes me laugh, and I'm like, oh, these guys are the best in the world. Um, And if they can make mistakes, like I'm human, everyone makes mistakes. Like obviously, I'm not trying to make those mistakes. I need to get better at certain things, but that kind of helps me like stop being so down on myself because I imagine like these guys are doing it in front of thousands of people and getting paid millions of dollars to make the same mistakes that I make sometimes. So it's just kind of funny.
Well, it's good to kind of put it into perspective. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great.
Uh, Courtney, another question we have for you is what impact do you think that coaches can have on mental health, both positive or negative?
I think coaches can have a pretty big impact on mental health, positive and negative. And I can only speak from a female sport because I know that things are a little bit different between the male and female gender and just how life is conducted. So as a female athlete, I think that your coach can have a massive impact on your mental health, whether that be a positive or a negative. Typically, female athletes really strive for validation, I think is a good word for it, in order to have achievement. We need to feel, or maybe this is me personally, feel like part of the team before we can continue to have extreme success. And so I think that knowingly or unknowingly, a coach can have a massive impact on how someone is performing, how someone is feeling, and just their overall mental health on and off the court. Because, especially in college athletics, it takes up so much of your life and your day. All the hours of your day, you focus on like the sport, the thing that you're there to do, and that can leak into different aspects of your life if you're not careful. And so, if your coach is having a is giving you a hard time and you reach a breaking point, that can really impact your mental health.
So if your coach is, I guess, giving off a negative attitude or just not being the best on the team's mental health as a female athlete. So as a leader, what do you do to help out those around you?
Um, I like to think I'm a positive person. That's just how I view myself. I try to be as positive as I can to counter it. It doesn't happen often. Luckily, I know that we're pretty blessed here. But I try to, if I notice someone is feeling down, they really got ripped into, or they're not having a good practice, or whatever's going on, I try to kind of make a joke, keep it light, and to remind them that they are doing well in different aspects of the game if they're struggling in one, just to try and um, counterbalance what they're hearing from everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everybody has those days, where it just seems like everybody's out to get you. And I think it's really important when the older guy or when the older people on the team kind of pick you up and pull you along and um, just remind you that you're there for a reason and you're doing okay. So I think that always meant a lot to me when I was playing when I was younger.
I don't think it needs to be someone older either. And maybe this is just a recent experience, but even the younger girls, I mean, I'm year 5. I've been around the block a couple of times, and the freshmen can still provide a fresh perspective and kind of, you know, after 5 years, it's been a lot. You've gone through a lot. And so it gets kind of tiring, but then the newbies always have a way to kind of remind you of why you stick around, why you're playing.
Kind of gives you a spark especially at the beginning of the year. I always think it's just the excitement comes up. You get to meet new people, and just kind of grow together and form a new bond with new teammates. I always found that pretty special.
For sure.
I think that coach-player relationship is like a really interesting dynamic, and I think it's like trending in the right direction. But I feel like there kind of needs to be more open communication between coaches and players because we're all in this together. We're all trying to win games if we're in the sport and have everyone as happy as possible if we're all winning and stuff like that. So maybe not like about tactical things like, oh, who should play and that stuff, but maybe coaches just coming up to you or you coming up to the coaches and saying like, oh, this person isn't feeling great, or like, oh, how are you doing? Just kind of that open discussion about how everyone's like mental state is because everyone's different. So I feel like if coaches are able to comfortably talk to their players in that space, it could be really beneficial.
Yeah, I don't think all coaches realize the actual impact they can have on their athletes. It's sometimes you're just hanging on every word they say. So certainly something that
Yeah, 'cause
that
it's
can
like
be improved.
I've been very lucky.
it's like that.
I for sure have with the people that I've had around me in those positions.
It's like that one person can like make or break a lot of your life. They have like so much influence, and I think like when the coaches realize that and they don't take it lightly, I think that is a big help for a lot of the team. Um, like uh, just simple things like asking like how are you feeling makes you really feel like you're like an important person on the team. You might not get the most playing time or something like that, but just making you feel like you're a true member of the team and that they actually care about you can go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Courtney, let's get into your story. Let's get into your journey with mental health. As both TC and I know, you take on a lot of responsibility and at the school at FGCU. So kind of talk a little bit about handling all that stuff. Pressure from external sources or pressures that you put on yourself or anything like that. How do you juggle those?
Like trying to figure out where to start. You mentioned it. I've been pretty involved. I've been very lucky to be as involved as I am at a school of our size. I wear a lot of different hats throughout the university, which has been a blessing, but it can also be a lot sometimes because of how much responsibility it's given to me. Sometimes I don't realize what all I'm signing up for at a time, and then it's all of a sudden I have so many things happening at once, and it can feel like the pressure is overwhelming. So that's fun. I don't know how to go from here.
Would you would you do it? Would you do it differently? Like when you first started out, knowing what you know now, how would you change it in any way? Would you put more emphasis on certain things than others? What would you do?
I don't think I would change it. Everything I've done, regardless of the struggles, have been worth it. And going back, knowing what I know, I would still make the same decisions. I would maybe be able to handle them a little bit better in the times of some serious pressure, but I wouldn't change it. I loved what I did. I love what I do. It can be overwhelming for sure, but I think that the risk is worth the reward.
So how is that to kind of just check in with yourself? Do you have to kind of reflect on the successes that have come? Because I'm sure there are a lot of other people out there who are taking on a lot of responsibilities in their athletic departments, and maybe looking for a way to learn how to balance their lives outside of athletics as well. So if you have any tricks or tips on how to do that, I'm sure a lot of people would benefit from it.
Yeah, the one thing I've really learned throughout the years is that you're not going to be able to give 100% to everything. Um, because you're not always going to be able to give 100%. But the thing that I have to remind myself is that if 80% is the best that I can give, I'm still giving my best if I give all 80. So let's say, in volleyball I can give 90%. That day I'm gonna give all 90. But in one of my other roles as president, I can only give 60% that day. I'm gonna try and give all 60 and understand that it's still my best because that's the best I can give instead of I know that I have 100%. I just can't be giving it all the time. Being okay with giving as much as I can and not letting the perfection side of wanting to always be at the top of your game every single day, not letting that take over.
I
I've
think that's
never heard
pretty.
it put like that, but I think
Yeah,
that's a great way to look at it.
I think that's pretty sound
Especially
advice.
athletes, a lot of us are like high the high level athletes are kind of the perfectionist personality type, and like you said, when you can't give like 100% to everything in your life, it kind of makes you feel like you aren't doing good enough. But reminding yourself that whatever your best um, is good enough is really important.
Yeah, I think that was really good advice. Yeah, very good. So we talked about we talked a little bit about the pressures and coming from a lot of different places, as I'm sure many people can relate to. And the next topic I think is something that people can relate to as well, and that's falling in and out of love with the sport that they're playing. Um, so tell us how you relate to that. Tell us your story with it and kind of how you've dealt with it.
Yeah, I've been playing the game of volleyball for all of my life. I was born into it. I have always loved it, but there were stretches of times where I didn't want to do it anymore. Um, I fell out of love with the sport, whether that be because a coach took that love from me, or if it's because I took that love from myself. It's been hard, and falling out of love with a sport is very difficult because it's been something that you've had your whole life, and it kind of shakes your sense of self. Um, but I don't think many people talk about trying to fall back in love with the sport. It can be just as hard as losing it because there will be days that you want to go back to just not wanting to do it anymore, not wanting to play. Um, but you have to remember all of the good things that have come from it, um, and remind yourself that it's okay to have bad days in the middle of the good days, or else you're not going to get any better.
Yeah. So have you taken, when you fall out of love with it, have you taken those breaks to kind of reflect on the whole process, on the whole grind of it? Um, how do you, what is your process to fall back in love with it, like you say?
It's never been like a physical break where I stop playing. It would be a moment of reflection or a moment of recognition of realizing just how far I've come where I just don't want to be doing it anymore. And it's kind of sad because, you think about all of the bright points of the sport that you've had, but then, you just can't do it. Some people might call it burnout, just years of it. And so just taking a moment to reflect and to acknowledge that it happens and it's okay. You don't have to be in love with the sport all the time to play it. I think that maybe you're playing your best when you do love it and you do love what you do, but you don't always have to love it, which is kind of freeing. It takes the requirement out of it.
Yeah, that obligation to enjoy it doesn't always have to be there, because it's certainly work and it's hard work, especially to get where you want to go. But that's why I think that the off season, like the end of the season, is so important. Like the winter breaks and the summer breaks and those couple weeks you get here and there, because I always remembered being a little bit excited for the winter break, but then after 1 week of not playing, I was just itching to get back. And then I would love getting back to school and start playing again and practicing and everything. But I think, at least for me, those little breaks without playing soccer, without doing anything, just kind of made me miss it a little bit, and just kind of reinvigorated my excitement for playing. I don't know if you guys have anything like that, TC. I don't know if you feel the same way or not, but that's how it was for me.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way after every season pretty much now. I definitely give myself some time, maybe a little longer time than my coaches want, but a few weeks to where I don't think about soccer at all, really, or do any soccer activities, just to kind of reset myself. Because, like Courtney said, you don't have to enjoy the game all the time, but I found myself, if I'm doing the game all the time, I'm going to be less likely to enjoy it. So that time away from it really gives you time to properly miss it. So when you get back into it, you're excited, you're having fun, and it just keeps it fresh. Because like anything you do for this long in your life, like all of us have, there's bound to be some point in time where you don't enjoy it as much as you used to. But I think it's all about managing that ability to fall back in love with it without breaking yourself at the same time. That kind of fine line, managing that is important and can be different for everyone.
Yeah, it certainly can. But yeah, I agree. I just always think that those little breaks really allow you to kind of re-energize and rest and get your body right. Because TC, I know you've had a lot of injury problems over the last couple of years, and that's always something that you're worried about going into the season and stuff. And so those little injuries can really make a difference if they're not right to go at the beginning of the season, and that rest time really does a lot for you, both mentally and physically, really.
Yeah, the physical side is huge too. Injuries are not fun. They're never fun. They never will be fun. Um, so anytime you can get to give your body a break when you put it through so much work is super important.
Yeah. Well, listen, one of our last segments here, we want to get into the mind of you before games in a sacred place that we all call the locker room. So we call this locker room talk. So our first question is, what is your pregame routine? What do you go through to get ready for a game? What do you like to do?
Yeah, I definitely have one. I think it's kind of important to be doing the same thing before every game, just to kind of shift yourself into, like the mentality that you need to have. Um,
Is that a superstitious thing, or
no, it's not, because I'm okay with not doing it. I just prefer to have
you
the
just like the repetition of it?
yeah,
Okay, I got you.
for sure. I'm a big consistency person. So anything that I can try and keep similar, it makes me feel better. It makes me feel more prepared, I guess is the word.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically to pregame, um, it kind of varies depending on if we're home or away, because for volleyball, your warm up depends on if you're home or away. Don't know if you knew that. The timing is different depending on where you're at. So about we have to be at the gym about 2 hours before the game to start our warm up, our on court warm up. So I try to get there about 30 minutes before. I like to do my hair in a very specific way with the braids. It gives me a bit of a reset, a reminder that like it's a game day. I try not to switch it up because it reminds me of the little girl that I was when I first fell in love with the game. I've kept the same kind of hairstyle my whole life. So it's a bit of a reminder for me. And then as we move forward, I continue to do everyone else's hair because I'm the team braider, which I know for you guys probably have one, but it's a big deal.
TT was a team braider.
Yeah,
Sure.
so make sure everyone's looking their best, look good, feel good, play good. And then as I get more towards actual game time, I will take a moment. I leave the locker room. I go sit outside by myself. I will read a chapter in my favorite book ever. It is called Relentless. I will pick a chapter depending on how I'm feeling, read it. I will read another little thing that I've kind of kept the same throughout the year. It's 10 reminders about who I am and what I do. And then I will take some time to pray, reset my mind, and then get ready to go. And that is my routine.
So are you kind of the more, low-key person in the locker room, or are you getting everybody hyped? What are you doing?
Tough question. Depends on the
Depends on the
on the
time of the pregame.
yeah. It also depends on how many pixie sticks I've had. So that's another but we all kind of do a good job of being hyped. No one gets really, well, I can't say that. I'm probably not the leader of the hype circle, which may surprise you guys a little bit. I I kind of take a backseat of that, but I will step in and insert some energy where it is needed.
It sounds like you're just wired after the sugar kicks in. So
Pixie
Um,
sticks.
Pixie sticks.
I'm serious. Well, it's either that or blow pops, where we always have some sort of candy. Please don't tell, Coach.
So you guys are just running on sugar.
Um, no, I
It's
feel
not
like
what it
we
sounds
did
like.
have to say no.
So look in the day of a collegiate volleyball player is just a pregame meal is just as much sugar as you can.
That is not true. It's a little spark. It's like a ritual we've
What's
started throughout the past few years. Everyone likes to have a pixie stick or two or 10 or 12. Just depends on who you are.
Are you going one at a time, or are you going just handfuls?
It's one at a time unless, special occasions.
Unless we're late in the day and you just got to get it going.
No, that time of day doesn't matter to me. It's more of like, conference championship deserves a little bit more.
Okay.
So I might have a few too many pixie sticks. Just kind of depends.
That sounds great.
Yeah, that's my secret snack, I
uh,
guess.
what's on your pregame playlist if you're a music person before games? Like, what kind of music do you like to listen to?
Um, so I'm not really a music person. So that's kind of a tough, I know, big shocker to some of you. It's kind of a tough question to answer, but we also keep a speaker in our locker room. So we have one person DJ and they will put the pregame playlist together. We have a couple consistent songs. Right now, the Drake album is up there. We listen to that one a lot.
What's
A
your
lot of
Certified Lover
what's your
Boy.
favorite song? You don't even know it.
yeah. We listen to a lot of 21 Savage, depending on who's DJing. I know, right? But then we also have
I
some of
wasn't
the,
expecting that.
yeah, we have some of the classics, like Gold Digger, I Don't F With You. What are some other
This is
ones?
a family-friendly podcast. Can you
I didn't, I, I didn't say anything wrong.
no, who has the so then who has the best pregame playlist?
Ooh. It depends on what kind of vibe we're going for. If we want more of the intense rap music, that's Emma Shipshack. She's got that one down.
Okay.
If we want a little bit more of like some random songs, we go with Aja Jones. She's always there for a surprise. Dana is a pretty consistent. She has a good playlist she plays. Always hits the good songs. The like "Come On Eileen" also is in there.
Before a
In the
game?
mix of all the girls just want to have fun. That's always a good one. Yeah. Um, City Girls, all kinds of things. There's never a consistent playlist. It kind of depends on the day. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Do you guys ever have aux issues where you just have to kick someone off because their aux is so bad? Does that ever happen
No,
to you?
because it rotates between the same few people. I mean, I'm
Okay.
typically not allowed on the aux because
Mm.
they can't really trust me with it.
That's fair.
So you're the person that gets kicked off.
Yeah.
No, I never volunteer, but I do perform really well when I'm chosen. I give a good mix of genres and songs and vibes. Yeah, yeah.
So it sounds like you guys have like a lot of fun together as a team. So how important would you say it is, like that the culture of the locker room is good to the success of the team and the happiness of the individuals?
I think culture is huge. I think it can make or break a team. Um, you can have the most talented team in the gym, and if they don't like each other, they don't play well together, then they can be beatable. Culture is something at FGCU volleyball that we place a massive emphasis on. It's been a work in progress throughout my years here, but where it's at now is great. We really care about each other on and off the court. We're a close team. There's only 16 of us, which might be small to you guys. That's a big team for us, most we've ever had. So I think being able to hang out or spend time with any one of those 16 individuals is huge because it translates on to the court with your connectivity or like how well you enjoy each other's company. If you've ever seen us play together, you can tell we like to have fun. We're just like that off the court too. We genuinely enjoy being around each other.
This is kind of like a team sport specific thing, but like as a leader and someone that's been there a while, how do you make sure the culture stays positive with new girls coming in and out? What are some things that your team tries to do to keep that culture going?
Um, a lot of our culture in our like our unspoken, not unspoken, but a lot of our culture has been driven by our coach. I think that's pretty important, especially in college athletics. The type of people that you can recruit to be there um, can say a lot about the culture and how it translates. So I think that our coaching staff does a really good job of getting good people. So we haven't really had a lot of issues recently within the past few years of people, with bad culture. But, if there is ever a time where like, some people just aren't vibing, we find a way to get that changed, whether it's a one-on-one conversation, if that doesn't work, if it needs to be taken up the ladder, then that's how it happens. But I think it's a pretty good understanding of how we are as a team and how our culture is, that being not in that culture is very outside of the norm, and you'll stick out. If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, that about does it for us on this episode of the Team Bus podcast. Courtney, do you have any extra advice that you would give, or anything you wanted to say?
No, I don't think I do.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Great way to end it. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate it, and we're really trying to make this something that can be a space for people to learn about their fellow student athletes and for people to get support. So continue to let us know your questions and your stories, and if there are any topics that need to be brought up, then just let us know. We're happy to do it.